I'm going to tell you a story that comes from our CD, Hoot Owl Blues. Well, this story is about when Jack still lived at home with his mama. Things were getting pretty hard at those times. They didn't have any money at all, and hardly anything in their house to eat. So Jack's mama thought he should go on out into the world and seek his fortune. She sure did hate to have Jack leave home so young, but she thought it would be better for him to get a job of work so he could eat regular. So she packed up a little sack full of food, all she had left in the house, and gave it to Jack. And Jack went on down the big road, and he went on, and he went on, and for a couple days everything was fine. It was kind of bright and sunny and pretty, and if Jack got tired, he'd lie down under a tree and go to sleep. And if Jack got hungry, he'd reach down in the sack and get him something to eat. But on the third day, the sack was empty. And on the fourth day, so was Jack. Long about nightfall, a rain started falling. It rained so hard that it made a puddle in Jack's underwear. Well, Jack came to a little town, and in the middle of the town, there was an inn. So that rain was coming down so hard, Jack thought to himself, now I would like to go inside that inn to get out of this rain and to get me something to eat. But I don't have any money. He didn't have any money at all. But Jack knocked on the door anyway. The innkeeper opened the door just a crack. He said, "What do you want?" Jack said, "Well, I was wondering if you had any work that needed to be done around here. I am a good hand to work. I can chop your wood for you. I can scrub your floors. I can weed your garden. I can do just about anything that needs to be done because, you see, I need to earn me some money so I can buy me something to eat because I'm awful hungry. And I don't know if you've noticed, but it's kindly wet out here." The innkeeper said, "I don't recall seeing you around these parts before." Jack said, "Well, that's because I'm not from around these parts. If I was from around here, I'd have enough sense to get in, out of the rain, and go home." "Why'd you leave home in the first place?" said the innkeeper. "Well, I came out to seek my fortune," said Jack. "Fortune?" said the innkeeper. "If you want a fortune, you don't want to be here with me." "I don't?" said Jack. "No," said the innkeeper. "Look up there on the hill. Do you see that big old empty-looking house?" "Well, of course," said Jack. "I told you I was hungry, not blind." "Well," said the innkeeper, "the king has said that anyone who could spend the whole night all alone in that big old empty house could have the house to keep and all the land it's setting on." "What?" said Jack. "You mean if I go up there and sleep all night in that big old empty house, I get to keep the house and all the land it's setting on? What's the catch?" The innkeeper said, "Well, they say that house is haunted." Jack said, "I ain't as scared of no haunts." "Well," said the innkeeper, "we'll see what you say in the morning." Now the innkeeper looked out at that poor hungry boy, all soaking wet, and the innkeeper must have felt kind of guilty. He was a stingy man. He didn't like to give away anything without getting paid. But he must have felt kind of guilty because he reached in, he had a big old pot of plain old beans cooking on the stove. He scooped some out and put it in a little bucket and handed it out to Jack. Then he must have still felt bad because he went back inside and got a piece of cornbread, put some butter on it, put that on top of the beans and handed that out to Jack. "Oh, thank you kindly," said Jack. He looked at that cornbread, his favorite, and he said, good old cornbread." So Jack started walking up the hill toward that big old empty house. When he got there, he started knocking on the door. But then he said, "What am I knocking for? If this is an empty house, nobody's gonna come and answer it." So he opened the door, and inside it was dark in that house. It was dirty with cobwebs all over everywhere. Jack felt his way till he came to the fireplace, and there he found some kindling wood and some matches. "I guess I'm just about the luckiest boy around," he said. He built up a big roaring fire in the fireplace, and he got himself all warm and started drying his clothes out. He put his bucket of beans on one side of the hearth, and he put his cornbread on the other side of the hearth so that the fire would warm up his supper. He said to himself, "Ooh, when that fire melts that butter on top of that cornbread, that's going to taste so good. Good old cornbread." Well, then Jack started thinking about how he was the onlyest one in that big old empty house. And he started thinking about how he was the onlyest one that had been in that big old empty house for a long time. And about that time, he heard a voice coming from up the chimney. The voice said, "I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna fall." "Well, fall and get it over with," said Jack. And down from the chimney came 2 human legs. They walked across the room, sat down on a rocking chair, and started rocking back and forth, back and forth. Jack said, "Could you please be careful? You almost knocked over my beans." He heard that voice again up the chimney. "I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna fall." "Is that all you can say?" said Jack. And down from the chimney came a human body. It rolled across the floor, hooked onto those legs, sat in that rocking chair, and started rocking back and forth, back and forth. Jack said, "Could you be more careful? You nearly knocked over my cornbread." That voice came again. What'd the voice sound like? "I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna fall." "Well, hush and do it," said Jack. And down through the chimney came 2 human arms. They ran across the floor, hooked onto that body, started rocking back and forth. Jack said, "Could you please be careful? You almost knocked over my entire supper." Then that body got up out of the chair and started running all around the room, opening cupboards, opening closet doors. And Jack said, wait a minute. What are you doing? You're going to knock over my food." The body said, "I'm looking for my head." Jack said, "Well, where was it the last time you saw it?" "Down in the cellar." "Well, just sit back down and be still and don't knock over my food, and I'll go down there and get it for you." "Okay." So the body sat back down the chair. Jack went over and opened the cellar door. He looked down in the cellar. It was dark down in that cellar. He closed the door and said, "I'll get it for you first thing tomorrow morning." "I want it now." And the body ran over, broke off one of his fingers, lit it in the fireplace just like a candle, and handed it to Jack. "Thanks a lot," said Jack. He took that candle and went down in the cellar. Oh, it was cold and damp down in that cellar. Oh, it was kind of smelly down in that cellar. It was kind of spooky down in that cellar. Jack looked over and he saw a human head. He ran, picked up that head, threw it under his arm, and ran back up the stairs. Now the body was there waiting for him at the top of the stairs. Jack put that head right on the body, and the body started blinking its eyes and started moving its lips, talking to Jack. And it said, "Jack, I've been haunting this house for 7 years, Jack. And you're the onlyest one, Jack, that has ever been helpful to me. When I was alive, I was a rich man. There is a lot of gold hidden down in the cellar right underneath where my head was laying at. Dig it up, Jack, and you will be a rich man." And poof, the body was gone. Jack said, "Gold down in the cellar? I'll dig it up first thing tomorrow morning." Then he went over to the fireplace and he ate those beans, and they were so good. He ate that cornbread, and what'd he say? Good old cornbread. Well, the next morning, Jack went down the cellar and he dug and he dug and he found a treasure chest. And the treasure chest was full of gold. Oh, now he was a rich man. And the first thing he did was he went home and got his mama. and brought her to live with him in that house. And they lived so happy ever after that. And you know what? The last time I went by their house, his mama made me some cornbread. That was the best cornbread I have ever had. Good old cornbread.